Heisei Generations Forever is the final Kamen Rider film to take place within the Heisei era of Japan. In the film, Sogo Tokuwa, aka Kamen Rider Zio, and Sento Kuryu, aka Kamen Rider Bill, find themselves in a world where Kamen Rider is nothing but a fictional TV franchise. All of their tragedies, all of their biggest moments, even of those of their predecessors, are nothing but entertainment. But in this world, a rogue timejacker by the name of Tid and his another rider henchman, another Deno, and another double are searching for this child named Shingo, who they need for their plans to take over the world and erase Kamen Riders forever. So this film, as I said, is the final Heisei era film to take place within the Heisei era in Japan. When a new emperor comes into power, as such, they have a new era named after them. So the new era is called the Reiwa era, and this is the end of the Heisei era. The Heisei era is already over, but we are now currently in the Reiwa era. So this film serves as a celebration, a big send-off for the Heisei era Kamen Riders, from Kugo all the way to Zio, all 20 of them. So the film, it's a very entertaining film. Surprisingly, it's actually quite long, and you definitely feel it. You feel that it is a long story, which isn't necessarily bad. It was actually, at least the pacing was actually good, despite the fact it felt long. And it was an entertaining film. I'll give it that. The choreography within the film was decent to good. When they bring in the rest of the Kamen Riders, there's lots of parts where you can see that the choreography in the fight wasn't too well. Like when some parts of Drive, the attacks were a bit too obvious, that there was just the stuntmen's not getting touched at all, but flying back. Or when Ghost is floating around, it's very clearly he's just on a Segway. The camera is just positioned so you don't see his feet or the Segway, but it does look a bit lazy. But overall, the choreography was really good. A lot of the fight scenes were really good. These new characters that were introduced to, Ataru and Shingo. Ataru is a Kamen Rider fan. He's searching for the Kamen Riders. He has made a contract with a creature called an Imogen, which were from Kamen Rider Deno, creatures from the future who come to present day to form contracts to grant wishes in order to give themselves a body. Then they can go back in time, and the majority of them wreak havoc in the past. This one makes a contract with Ataru. Ataru wants to meet the Kamen Riders because he needs them to help save and search for his missing brother. And then we have the little kid Shingo, who is needed desperately for Tid's plan, so he is on the run as well. With Ataru, Ataru is a very good representation of the viewer, of the Kamen Rider fan. It's a kind of a metaphysical representation of, like, me. Like, he's this huge Kamen Rider fan. He absolutely loves it, to the point that he wants them to be real, to help him, to save his brother that went missing on the day that Ataru was born. Like, he's entirely devoted to Kamen Rider, and the writer for the film does this really well. The film overall does it very well. The Shingo, the kid, he's really good. Surprisingly, he was a really good child actor. There's one particular scene with a couple of child actors which weren't particularly good, but Shingo himself was surprisingly a good child actor. The villains of Heisei Generations Forever, they weren't bad. They were particularly cookie cutter. The actor who played Tid did a really good job of making him kind of like a bit menacing, a bit cunning, but he's a very cookie cutter villain. Another Deno and another double, they were just typical henchmen. You don't really know almost anything about another double because apparently due to time constraints, they had to cut out his backstory. We do figure out who another Den-O is. I'm not going to spoil that because it's kind of integral to the plot, but well, in a way. But with another double, you don't really know particularly a lot with him, as I said. But overall, like, these three villains were, they did what they needed to do, they did. Like, what they needed to be as villains, they did it. But it was very cookie cutter. They're not like the overall best villains in existence. The story was entertaining. Story was good. It was served as a good celebration of the Heisei era Kamen Riders. And going into celebrations, we have the tributes, much like with Kamen Rider Zeo, where several episodes serve as tributes to one of his predecessors. This film served as a tribute to three: Kamen Rider Kuga, Den-O, and Double, or W. So we'll start off with the worst, which was W, aka Kamen Rider Double. His tribute was the worst in this film. Hardly anything that kind of celebrated his series. They didn't even bring back a major actor for that part. The actual one of the actors that played Kamen Rider Double, the one who played Philip, he wanted to come back for this film, but because of scheduling reasons, he wasn't able to. He's a very popular actor in Japan, so he just didn't have the time as much as, despite the fact he really wanted to be there. But they did get like a very minor character to come back, and it's just like, hey, look, remember that guy? It's just like, well, he's not really one of the main characters. Who cares? And Double's parts only really are there to help progress the plot later on in the film. The fight between Zeo Double Armor against another Double was okay. CGI was a bit weird, or there's a lot of problems with the CGI, which I'll go in later on. But I felt overall that the tribute for Double in this film was definitely the weakest of the three. The next one, in the middle, would be Kuga. Kuga does an alright job as celebrating the series. There's a lot of emphasis on Kuga. Like, Tid is able to create this world where Kamen Rider is just fiction, by going back and stealing Kamen Rider Kuga's powers. Kuga is very prominent and essential to his plans and to the history of the Heisei era Kamen Riders, and they did this really well in the film. They go back to the tomb of Riku, who was the previous Kuga, not the main one that most people know, Yusuke Godai. But Riku, the first Kuga, the location of his tomb itself, that's revisited. As I said, the importance of Kamen Rider Kuga as the first Heisei era Kamen Rider is addressed in this film and is very prominent in the plot. Then the best of the tribute arcs in this film is definitely Kamen Rider Den-O's. This entire story is just one big Kamen Rider Den-O film, pretty much. There's a lot of nostalgia within the film, and the Den-O parts are definitely prominent in that when it comes to nostalgia. You have the Taros Imogen come back, Momotaros, Yurotaros, Kintaros, and Rutaros. You have which was the biggest surprise, Rotaro Nogami, who was Kamen Rider Den-O, particularly the host for those four Imogen. He came back. The actor who portrayed him came back for that role, Takeru Sato, which was a big surprise because he is such a popular actor. It'd be so difficult to get him back for a role, and they did. After 10 years since his last time he's played this role, he came back. Although he doesn't come back as himself, he's possessed by one of the Imogen in the film, which is a bit disappointing, but their reasoning behind this was, and Takeru Sato explained this himself, he didn't want to ruin fans' expectations of what a mature and adult Rotaro would be like. Because in the series, he's this bumbling, nice teenager. He wasn't particularly very mature. He had to really rely on the others for help, and he does start to slightly mature as the series progressed, but he wasn't like fully matured. He still really needed others' help overall, but they didn't want to, for this film, they didn't want to ruin what a mature Rotaro would look like, so I understand that, but it was good to see Takeru Sato back in that role. The music, the characters, all of that for Den-O, they nailed perfectly, hence why I would say it was the best tribute within this film. So, onto the CGI, which I mentioned. The CGI was not that good in this film. CGI overall in tokusatsu isn't particularly that good because they're on a budget. The films, they make it slightly better because they're on a film budget instead of a spread out TV series budget. But the budget in this, not the budget, the CGI in this film was, oh god, particularly towards the end when another Cougar is introduced and the final fight between all 20 Kamen Riders against another Ultimate Cougar. The CGI in that was just so horrendous. It looked like a terrible video game animation. Which is weird because they also used proper live action stunts as well in that sequence. So it's just like, why couldn't you do that for all of them? I don't know why. Why is 2/4 terrible CGI and 1/4 2/3 terrible CGI and 1/3 not? Like, I don't know why. It's such an odd choice, and the scene itself is actually an amazing scene. All 20 Kamen Riders performing their finishes to take down the final boss. It's an awesome concept. It's awesome on paper, but how they executed it with CGI, it's just terrible. It really, really brings down the awesomeness of that scene, which was unfortunate. But overall, with this film, it's an entertaining film. It's not perfect, but I was entertained by it. It is I would say, at least a decent to good film. What it needed to do was to celebrate the Heisei era Kamen Riders as a whole, a final send-off to that era, and this film accomplished it very well. So that is it for my review. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next time.